Afternoon, everyone. It is 4 o'clock on Monday, October the 16th, and I call the Yelm Planning Commission meeting to order. Staff, could you please do the roll call?
Commissioner Carlos Perez,
Speaking here.
Commissioner Bob Howard,
Here.
Commissioner John Graber,
Here.
Commissioner Richard Longdale is attending via Zoom. Commissioner Ann Warman here, Commissioner Jerry Fugic,
Here.
Commissioner John Thompson.
Here.
Okay,
Very well, we have a quorum. Could you please all stand for the pledge of allegiance? I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I take it everyone has had an opportunity to look at the minutes. Attached and read them. Are there any amendments or changes? Very well, do I hear a motion to approve?
Go ahead, Joe. I'll move that the minutes be approved as read.
I second it. I have a motion and a second to approve the minutes. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None. Agenda item number 5. Are there any staff communications?
Just a couple items. We kicked off our initial meeting with our consultant for the comprehensive plan update. And they are planning to visit in person toward the end of the month. It would not be a scheduled meeting with the planning commission. No one necessarily has to attend, but I'm going to extend an invitation that in case anybody does want to meet with the consultants, assuming you're available, to just sort of, we're going to basically just be driving around town, kind of showing them the lay of the land and getting them familiar with Yelm.
So what is the date of that?
I will have to email you. I think it's the 26th, but I will email you to confirm that. And then on the other front, in terms of the other big plan, we're working on the habitat conservation plan for the pocket gopher. We're about maybe halfway done. It's really just now starting to get interesting because we're really starting to have discussions about how much habitat we would need to conserve to be in compliance with the Endangered Species Act. And once we have that, then we're going to start talking about, well, what's the mechanism for getting the land? So it's kind of a big deal.
I'm not, what do you mean by getting the land?
Well, we're going to be required to set aside or conserve a certain number of acres of habitat as part of the offset for allowing permitting in other areas where there may be gophers. And the talk has been anywhere between 250 to 500 acres will be needed. And we're in discussions about, well, where do we find that land too?
Yeah.
And right now, the conversation we're having with U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service is that we may need to partner with either the county or maybe the Nisqually Land Trust to try to obtain and manage lands that are outside our city limits, because the problem with being inside the city limits is we have a ton of gopher soils, but it's all fragmented habitat because we got development obviously already. And so does it do you any good to set aside a 5-acre parcel? What they really want are bigger areas. So
Does this land have to be adjacent to where buildings are being constructed or?
no, it just needs to be what's considered suitable habitat for the pocket gopher, and it has to be the same subspecies because there are 4 subspecies too. And there is one which is specific to Yelm.
Excuse me, I don't mean to be facetious. How are those gophers gonna know where to go?
They carry a passport.
No, we would be planning to set aside areas where they already are.
Oh, okay.
So,
Okay, very well.
anyway, so that's all I have for update from them.
Thank you, Gary. All right, and if there's anyone in the audience that has comments or would like to address the commission, you're welcome to do that. You have 3 minutes in which to do that. And we ask you to come up to the podium and with your name and your address for the record. So are there any comments on the matters listed on the agenda? None? Very well. Move on. Item number 7, agenda item number 7, unfinished business. Are there anyone, staff, or anything, staff, of unfinished business from the last meeting? None?
Oh, I'm sorry. No, I was looking at my report here. My apologies. No, I don't.
Very well. Item number 8, new business. How about new business, staff?
No, sir.
None? Very well. Then I will prepare to open the hearing, the public hearing scheduled for today. Today is October the 16th, and I'll open the planning commission for this public hearing at 4:05. Today's hearing is on the proposed rezone request and modifications to the Yelm Municipal Code. I'll open for public testimony. If there's anyone wishing to speak this afternoon, please click on or raise hand on the screen if you're streaming it. And please give your name and address for the record. Do you have any comments? None?
No comments.
Okay. Commission, do you guys have any comments on the proposed changes? None? Very well.
I reviewed
It's
it.
going to be a very fast hearing.
It actually looks like a very reasonable
Yes,
request to make. There was once upon a time when there was thought that there was going to be some type of commercial activity along 507. But it makes more sense at this juncture to
yes,
go forward with the request.
agree.
Well, it was commercial at one time. It's
Well,
the
it
golf
was.
range,
Yeah,
right? The
yeah.
golf, yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm. Right.
Well, there being no further testimony then, I'll close the hearing. It is now 4:07. Thank you, everyone. Very well, moving on.
Excuse me.
Yes,
You do need to take a vote on.
oh, of course.
Because it's a recommendation that goes to the council.
Yes. Do I hear a motion to accept?
Motion that we accept.
Well, I second. Second,
Are we accepting the rezone? Are we doing the other, the municipal code change, or do we do both?
This is just the rezone.
Just the rezone?
just a reason,
Okay.
just a rezone. No problem. So I have a second as well. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion is passed.
Okay. Thank you. You can sit in the audience now.
All right, then, where are we at now? Subcommittee reports?
Another hearing.
Modifications to the zoning that
Oh, yeah.
this is
Where
municipal
is
code.
that?
The other page.
The back of this.
Oh,
There's the
I see it.
modifications to the
yes, okay.
municipal code.
All right, modifications to the Yelms Municipal Code, including those adoptions of the flood damage and preventions ordinances and modifications to these 2 chapters. Do I hear any comments or amendments or changes?
I have a question.
We required to open the hearing a second time since it's 2 different items, I believe.
All right, then. Yes, I open a second public hearing at 4:09. If there's anyone that wishes to comment, either seen or present, please come forward to the podium, give your name and address for the record. Hearing none. We proceed. Are there any from the commission, are there any questions or comments regarding the modifications?
I think I was behind the door when somebody said something about the adoption of flood damage prevention ordinance modifications, because I don't know what that is.
I would like to have Pat talk about it because he's been working.
I can probably provide you with some background here on this one and why I'm here today. I've met most of you. I'm Pat Hughes, city engineer for the city of Yelm. I don't get to come to these very often, so. So I'm bringing a new ordinance today. This will be part of the Unified Development Code. I'm calling it chapter 18.19. It will be a new chapter in the Unified Development Code. It is a flood damage prevention ordinance. I'd like to clarify why I'm bringing this ordinance to you. We actually already have in our code provisions for a flood damage ordinance, but they're very out of date. We've been contacted by FEMA by way of the Department of Ecology that we need to update our code for flood damage prevention. This is necessary in order to comply with NFIP requirements and National Flood Insurance Program requirements. So what I have done is created a brand new ordinance to cover the floodplain provisions. And I've modified 3 existing ordinances, namely 1811, which is the environmental review and permitting, 1821, which is our critical areas and resource lands, and also added a few new definitions to chapter 18.02. All of these modifications I've included in your rather thick packet today. I've left them in Word format with track changes turned on so you can see what we're removing and what we're modifying in those 3 existing chapters. And I have also included a copy of the new floodplain flood damage ordinance. I would like to point out that in the new ordinance, the most important paragraph in that document is clause 1819.020B, which really what this does is adopts the brand new floodplain maps that FEMA has now provided. These are digital format maps nowadays, rather than the old paper flood maps that you're probably familiar with. So this must be adopted in order for residents in the city of Yelm to be eligible to purchase flood insurance. If this is not adopted, not that I'm threatening you by any way, but if this is not adopted, then the city will be ineligible for purchase of flood insurance to the NIFP. Any new flood insurance policies cannot be sold, and any existing policies cannot be renewed. So it's important that our ordinance follow the requirements of the NIFP in order to be eligible for flood insurance. Understood? Okay. So the new ordinance very closely follows the Washington model ordinance that we were provided by the Department of Ecology, almost word for word. And I'm asking for your approval of the modifications to the existing ordinances and approval of the new floodplain ordinance, which will replace the provisions of the others. If you got any questions related to floodplain, I'd be happy to answer them.
I have a question. Now, will that map be included in the ordinance? So when somebody's applying, you're not trying to fish a map up someplace to find out where the floodplain is?
Yeah, it says in the ordinance, the maps will be kept on file with the floodplain administrator. I'm going to be serving as floodplain administrator from this point forward. It says that also it's required to state that in the ordinance, which it does. The floodplain maps are not able to be attached like a paper map like they used to. Everything has gone digital, as you know. And there is a provision to go online to create and print your own maps depending on where you're located. And it's actually a pretty simple, straightforward, intuitive site. If you just go to FEMA.gov, it guides you through the process of how to locate and print a flood map for your area.
And that's the responsibility of the procurer of the insurance policy, or?
It's anybody. It can go on there to determine whether you are in or not located within a floodplain, to determine what, you know, it contains a lot of other information that a simple paper map cannot do, such as the elevation. I know some of you are involved in real estate and understand this, but the minimum floor elevation to which a structure must be elevated in order to get out of the floodplain. Remember, a floodplain, if you're located in a floodplain, it's not a physical map location, it's more of an elevation, how high you are above the 100-year floodplain or the 1% chance floodplain.
We only have a small percentage of the city in the flood
We do, and
along Elm Creek, and then
thank you, great segue. That's so I printed a map. It's all over on the wall next to John over here. This is Elm Creek, and in the blue denotes where the floodplain is currently located based on the 2021 flood insurance study. I've also put on there in hatching where our previous flood zone was located as of the 2012 flood insurance study. And it's kind of interesting to see which areas have been taken out or no longer in the flood zone and which ones have been added. There's 3 concerning areas in the city, which I can point out to you. All of these people know this. They've been notified they have to have flood insurance. This is nothing new. But they need to be aware that in order to purchase flood insurance, they have to have the local community adopt the new floodplain maps. I'd be happy to point out some little interesting tidbits here after the meeting if you'd like, but if you've got any questions pertaining to the adoption of the new ordinance, I'll be happy to answer those.
I have one question.
Yes, go ahead.
I noticed that the language around defining floodway, floodplain, channel migration area, that you've changed that. That's been changed with this to frequently flooded area, because sometimes it's not something that's a water course. It's actually groundwater that builds up.
It can be also high groundwater. It's a flooded, yep. There's more than one way it can flood.
So
It can be rain.
it seemed interesting to me. It seemed like, boy, they're starting to get really a lot more sharp about this, that it's not.
Well, if you get into floodplain management, you'll discover there's a lot of ways you can be flooded. I mean, it can be coastal flooding, it can be mountain flooding, it can be riverine flooding, as well as high groundwater. There's a number of ways that can happen. Fortunately, in Yelm, we're pretty limited as to the hazards. And we've got them pretty well mapped out. We do have 2 primary areas of floodplain in the city. One is along Yelm Creek, which I've mapped here. The other is along Thompson Creek, which has not been studied by FEMA. That doesn't mean the floodplain does not exist. And so if you look at the new maps, the new DFIRMs, digital firm maps, you'll see that it does approximate the area of inundation for a 1% chance floodplain. Interesting.
Any further questions from anyone? All right, hearing none, do I hear a motion to adopt modifications?
close the hearing first.
Oh. Yes, so we will close now the hearing at 4:18. Second hearing. Yes, Gary.
I just want to point out that you want this motion to be a recommendation to the council to
To the
adopt.
council, yes. I close the hearing at 4:18, and I now accept the motion to accept the recommendations and proceed to council.
I will move that we accept the recommendations and the chapter 18-19 and all its additions, and that it be forwarded to the city council.
Here's a second. Here's a second. Motion being seconded and approved. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? None, hearing none, it is approved that we pass this on to the city council. Modifications to section or chapters 18.
And I'll stick around after the meeting.
All right, thank you. All right, moving on. Subcommittee reports. Do we have any subcommittee reports?
I can go and tell you that there's a lot of work going on in town, with the parks. And you may have seen that the new stage in, City Park is the construction for that. There's all the preparation for it, as well as, the other additional covered buildings have been removed for the stage setting, you know, the audience, area. And that's underway. The second one is the dog park is underway. The construction of the dog park is happening as we speak. If you go down past Public Works, you'll definitely see all the heavy equipment there working on making the dog park happen. And the third one that's underway is also the trail. And the extension of the Elm Prairie Line Trail to the river. And that particular one, it's going to be a little bit later in the year that all of the new surfacing for the trail will be done. But there's members of Public Works as well as myself are getting together with the key land property owners alongside the new trail on a regular basis to look at how do we keep it safe? You know, how do we work together to keep it not inhabited, I'd say is one way to put it, you know, to keep, how do we keep people from taking advantage of a new trail to take over lands that are not theirs. So we're trying to come up with ways that that are appropriate and meet the landowners' requirements as well. So all of that's underway this winter and through until the spring is a very, very busy time. We've got multiple. I was going to say Pat usually does all these projects, but now they're passed on. Yeah, so that we've got projects that are underway and due to be ready to go early on next year sometime, spring, early summer.
Great.
And so there've been posts on the web page, on the Facebook page, about in particular about the city park and the new stage, because we were concerned that there'd be a lot more people that would be wondering what in the world's going on there. Things are getting all torn up and going to be rebuilt. So that's out there on the Facebook page, if there's interest to see what the new stage design is. Any other questions?
John?
I don't, but Chris, is there anything new?
Yeah, so we're gonna, the Elm Tree Advisory Board will meet 2 weeks from today. We're gonna start working on Arbor Day and what that's gonna look like. We're gonna introduce Lynn Roy, who is the Communications and Recreation Coordinator for the City of Yelm. The goal is she'll probably take over the tree board at some point, and she's gonna be presenting and hosting the Arbor Day celebration this year and each year subsequent. So that's kind of what we have in store for 2 weeks from now.
That's good.
Sorry, I should have brought this up in new business, but I don't know if you all have met Drew Collar yet. He's.
Oh, well, yeah. We know Drew.
You know him, all right, well, he's working in planning now, so he's.
Really?
With us for 2 weeks. He's been with us for 2 weeks, he's doing great, so he's Miriam's replacement, so we now have Clayton and Drew working in planning.
Wonderful.
Good job.
Great to be back.
Good job.
Good to have you back.
Yeah.
Very well then, let's move on. Oh, that's it for the no other committee report. All right, then, do I hear a motion to?
I move we adjourn.
We're going there, is there?
Never mind.
All right, I'll second.
Meeting adjourned at 4:24. Planning Commission, thank you all for attending. All right, thank you.
Swim hall. Yeah. It wasn't that, there.